So let's talk about the cloud and the technologies that are driving us to move to the cloud. It really all started back with Sir Tim Berners-Lee and the World Wide Web. His goal was to allow data to be easily found and moved from one machine to another. So his data stores at CERN, for example, could be served up to people in the USA that were working on research related to CERN. Now, the technologies that drove the World Wide Web were the browser and also the web servers that served up this data. And we actually developed a new programming model which we now call web programming. And we're going to come back and discuss that, because really it's that has given rise to a lot of the business models that we now see that rely on personal data being mined and moved so that people can make decisions about their businesses based on that data. But moving back to Sir Tim Berners-Lee, he invented HTTP and the idea of a URL that allowed you to address machines, and as we'll see later, we could even address data on those machines. And the World Wide Web really gave rise to the Internet of Things. Some people call it Web 2.0, that now we have devices talking to devices, but they're using basically this web programming technology. And we're going to dive into that and talk about that, because it's important that we understand the kind of programming and the kind of technology that is allowing us to move this data around. Now, with the Internet of Things, and particularly the cell phone, we had a flood of data. And based on these vast pools of data that accumulated, we had machine learning. So in 2012, Geoffrey Hinton, for example, came up with a machine learning algorithm that could identify the content of images. So he could detect whether it was a dog or a cat in the image, and that became extremely useful. And we can talk in detail about machine learning, but here I just want to mention it as one of the technologies that's driving us to the cloud, because these vast quantities of data that we need to train the algorithms, we need huge numbers of machines, lots of GPUs, for example, and people started building data centers for their own internal use, that they wanted to mine their own data. But then they realized that actually these data centers were complex things to run and manage. And so we had people like Google and Amazon that had built data centers with tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of machines for their own internal use, realizing that perhaps they could sell their unused cycles. And the idea of the public clouds was born, that they started making their data centers available to the general population. And so today we find ourselves with data centers, the cloud, that are hugely complex and that in fact have given rise to new programming abstractions. So we'll talk about virtual private clouds, we'll talk about internet gateways, etc. And these programming abstractions are what you need to understand if you're going to make decisions about a digital transformation, for example. So in this course, we're going to actually touch the tools and these technologies that are behind the cloud. As I say, web programming is just one. We'll also understand that the clouds are not just hardware, but have got layer upon layer of software that's quite complex, that's needed to manage both the hardware, the machines, but also the software that's running on those machines. We're going to spin up some machines in the cloud, and you're going to move and provision those machines. So we believe that that's going to give you an understanding that will allow you to make decisions about digital transformation and moving to the cloud, and also enable you to move perhaps into new positions in your company driving this kind of innovation. Bye for now.